Hello everyone, and welcome to our next video. This video is part of a series where we are implementing a microservices-based social media application, and our main goal is to learn the microservices pattern, as well as some of its challenges and how we can address these challenges so that we can enjoy the many benefits that come with microservices without having to suffer from its drawbacks. In the previous videos, we have implemented several of the user stories that are defined in our Kanban board. And if you are curious, you can have a look at the previous videos. I will put a link to the playlist in the description of this video. And in the previous video, we started discussing how our verification email functionality is going to look like. So in this video, we are coming back to our code and we'll continue, or actually we will start the implementation of our email sender API. So let's, before everything, start running our test watcher. We give it a couple of seconds, all the tests are going to pass. And an important note is, if you are new to this series, we are adopting a test-driven development approach, which means that we focus on writing the tests before we have the functionality. And then we write just enough functionality, maybe a little bit more sometimes, but most of the times just enough functionality for our tests to pass. So as always, I'll start by creating a test directory here inside the utils folder because we still don't have it. And within this tests directory, I will create a test for my email sender. So here, as we discussed in the previous video, one of the functionalities I want to have is that I want the email sender to be able to be activated and deactivated, right? So if it is deactivated, it should throw an error. If the email sender is deactivated, right? And this function is going to be an async function and should throw an error when sending an email if the email sender is deactivated, right? Because if it is deactivated, it needs to be validated. So if I want to send an email, I need to validate my email sender first. And if it is deactivated, then I'm going to throw an error, right? So here I will have, I will get access to my email sender instance. And this is perhaps a little bit new to you. I don't know if you're familiar with this structure. But what I want us to follow here is the Singleton pattern. And what does this Singleton pattern do is that it ensures that there is only one instance of my email sender throughout my application. And why do I want that? You may be thinking, well, doesn't it make sense that I can instantiate my email sender in a lot of places? Well, not really. And I'll show you why. But for now, let's continue here. I will write this email sender instance. And this is going to be my class email sender.getInstance. Okay. And as you can see, this is going to fail because we have no email sender in our application whatsoever. So we will start by creating a new file here, email sender.ts. And this file is going to export as a default a class called email sender. And then I'll come to my index file and I will immediately export the default as email sender. And that's a matter of personal preference. I just prefer to export the defaults as named exports from an index file. But now I can then access my email sender somewhere else. And if your IDE has the functionality enabled, here mine is already hinting that I can import email sender from /index. Right, so here now at least I have the email sender class, but I still don't have the instance because this get instance here is not implemented. So let's see how this works in a Singleton pattern. So I'm gonna add a comment here. We are following the Singleton pattern, right? This is an object-oriented design pattern, and I do have the plan of putting online several videos about this. So if you're interested in getting access to these videos once they are online, just subscribe to the channel or make sure to follow it or check it regularly, and the videos should be there over the next weeks, because I want to explore not only the Singleton pattern but also other patterns like the factory pattern or the observer pattern or the decorator pattern and other patterns that can be useful in an object-oriented development environment, right? So the Singleton pattern, the way that we ensure that there is only one class or one instance of a class is by making the constructor private. And you may be wondering, okay, wait, but how do I make the constructor private, right? Then I cannot really instantiate this class outside of the email sender. So if I were to come back here and if I were to create some test email sender, then I cannot call this like this. It's going to complain and it's going to say that the constructor is private and only accessible within the class declaration. So for us to actually be able to get the email sender, we need to implement a method, and this method is going to be the getInstance method. This method is going to be static because it needs to be accessible from outside of our class without having an instance of the class. So we need to access it globally without having an instance of the class. And this is going to reference our private static instance. Let's call it like this, email sender instance, which is going to be of type email sender. So if my this.email sender instance, or if there is no this.email sender instance, then this.email sender instance is going to be a new email sender, right? Otherwise, I will, or not otherwise, but I will return then this.email sender instance. And the idea here is that I'm returning an email sender as a result of this method. So now I can ensure that my email sender instance here is going to have the only instance of my email sender class. Now the tests should begin to pass, and we will continue with the implementation of our first actual check. Good. So we are able to get now the instance of the email sender, and we will then come back in the next video and implement our first check. If the email sender is deactivated, we would expect an error when sending an email. Until then, thank you very much. Bye bye.